Okay, Eric. So I see that you want to talk a little bit about triggers and how they work in VCS. Can you tell us a little bit about them?
Sure. Okay. So triggers are an event-driven mechanism that allow you to customize the behavior of VCS when certain events occur within the cluster. There are something like around 20 pre-configured triggers that exist, and they're implemented very, very simply just by placing the script that you want to execute in opt/vrts vcs/bin/triggers. So for example, if I want to execute a post online trigger, I would just place a script within the triggers directory named post online, and whenever a service group came online, after it finished coming online, that post online trigger would get executed. The way you manage how that trigger runs, for example, the post online trigger gets a couple arguments passed to it, namely the system where that service group came online, as well as the name of the service group that came online. Service group name. That's important to know because you may not want to execute the same actions for every service group. Maybe for some service groups you don't want to do anything, but that because you've implemented that trigger will still get executed. So if the service group name that gets passed to your trigger script does not match a service group that you care about, then you just take no action. You might have some service groups where you want to take different actions, so you just look at the service group name within your script and you take the appropriate action based on the service group name. Some of the examples of the triggers that are available to you are things like in jeopardy, which would get triggered anytime a cluster node goes down to one remaining cluster communications link. Another one is the no failover event, which is a trigger that will get invoked anytime a service group goes offline and has nowhere else to go back online for whatever reason. Maybe it's faulted on all the other nodes in the cluster and just has nowhere to go. Pre-online trigger is one of the more useful ones, and that one allows you to take an action prior to bringing a service group online. One good use case for that, for example, might be in a disaster recovery configuration where you're bringing service groups online at a remote recovery site. Chances are you have already applications running there, and maybe they might even be test dev instances of your production apps. You want to take those applications offline prior to bringing your production apps online. A word of note that it's very useful to know, opt/vrts vcs/bin/sample triggers has sample triggers for all the possible trigger events that you can execute. So it's a good idea to grab the sample trigger script that's already listed in this directory, copy it to your triggers directory, and make the necessary modifications to it so you have some basis to start with.
All right. So it sounds like it's really not that difficult to create triggers in VCS. Would that be fair to say?
Not at all difficult. You're only limited by your scripting capabilities.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot for explaining to us what triggers do in VCS.